Everyone avoided her the moment she walked into the wedding hall. It was supposed to be a perfect day, white roses, silver chairs, soft jazz floating through the air, but the moment the tall black woman stepped inside, conversations stopped mid-sentence, wine glasses froze mid, eyes sliced across the room like judgmental blades. Her name was Lena. She wore a simple navy dress. Nothing flashy, nothing loud, but the way people stared at her made it seem like she'd shown up covered in flames. She kept her head down, her hands clasped together, her breath unsteady. She didn't belong here, at least. That's what everyone else believed. The bride's side whispered first. Why is she here? Who invited her? Did she wander in by mistake? Then the groom's relatives took over. Maybe she works here. That dress looks cheap. Must be a charity case. Lena pretended not to hear, but every word cut deeper than the last dot. She found a seat in the very back row, away from the flowers, far from the families, where shadows hid her shaking hands. No one sat near her. People were literally choosing to stand rather than share a row with her. A little girl tugged her mother's dress. Mommy, can I sit with her? No, the woman whispered harshly. You stay away. Lena smiled weakly at the child anyway, but lowered her eyes the moment the mother glared. She had come only because the groom had insisted, begged, even, please, be there, he'd said. I can't imagine the day without you. But right now, she regretted every step she'd taken into this room. The ceremony began. The bride walked in, glowing and beautiful. Everyone cried. Everyone clapped. Everyone smiled at each other, except Lena. She stayed quiet, invisible in plain sight. Then came the moment of vows. The groom Daniel looked impossibly happy. But then, something shifted. He scanned the crowd slowly, almost anxiously. His eyes landed on her, and in a flash, his expression changed entirely. The crowd noticed. They followed his gaze. Murmurs rose again. Why is he looking at her? Does he know her? This is going to be awkward. The bride, beautiful and beaming, gently nudged him. Honey, your vows. But Daniel didn't start. He kept staring at Lena as if the world depended on it. Finally, he stepped away from the arch. Daniel? The officiant asked. Everything all right? He didn't answer. He walked straight down the aisle toward the woman no one else would even sit beside. Gasps filled the room. Phones lifted. People whispered like swarming bees. The bride looked confused. The guests looked furious. And Lena looked terrified. Daniel stopped in front of her. He didn't care about the whispers. He didn't care about the stares. He fell to his knees in front of her, eyes glassy with emotion. Lena, he said softly, thank you for coming. The entire room erupted in shock. The bride clutched her chest. Daniel's father nearly dropped his drink. Someone whispered, oh God, what is happening? Lena's voice cracked. Daniel, please get up. People are staring. Let them stare, he replied, tears welling. After everything you did for me, I'll kneel in front of you 1,000,000 times. She shook her head, embarrassed. Please, don't do this. But Daniel didn't move. He turned back toward the stunned crowd and said in a loud, steady voice, everyone should know who she is. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. Daniel stood and helped Lena up gently, as if she were royalty. Then he wrapped his arm around her shoulders, guiding her up the aisle with him. The bride watched, confused but trusting. This woman, Daniel said, voice trembling, is the reason I'm alive. Gasps shot through the hall. Daniel swallowed hard and continued, when I was 17, I was stupid, angry, drifting. I was ready to throw my entire life away. He looked at Lena with a grief-filled smile. She found me collapsed outside the community center. Everyone else passed by. Everyone else assumed a troubled kid wasn't worth helping. People shifted uncomfortably, recognizing themselves in that judgment. But she didn't hesitate. She carried me, literally carried me, half a mile to the clinic. She stayed until I woke up. She fed me, counseled me, got me into school, pushed me to apply for scholarships. And she never asked for anything in return. Lena wiped her tears quietly. Daniel's voice broke. She didn't know me. She owed me nothing, but she saved me. The room had transformed, disbelief melting into guilt, shame. She is the reason I graduated, the reason I went to law school, the reason I became the man standing here today. Daniel faced his bride, then the whole crowd. So when I invited her, I didn't invite a stranger. I invited the person who gave me a second life. His breath shuddered. Of course she belongs here. She belongs anywhere I am. A few guests began crying. Even the bride wiped her eyes. Daniel then did something no one expected. He pulled Lena into a tight, emotional hug. She stiffened at first, overwhelmed, then allowed herself to melt into it. When they separated, Daniel whispered, your family. Lena the bride finally walked toward them, her dress sweeping across the aisle. She approached Lena with hesitant steps, then took the woman's hands gently. Daniel told me stories, but never your name, she said softly. I knew someone had saved him, but I never imagined. She paused. Thank you for giving me the man I love. Lena's tears spilled freely. The bride hugged her to and suddenly, the crowd that had avoided her like disease moments earlier, now stared at her as if she were a miracle standing in human form. An elderly woman stood. I'm sorry for how I acted. Another guest followed. Me too. We were wrong. More and more people approached, apologizing, offering seats. offering embraces. The same mother who had pulled her daughter away earlier now guided the child back. "Honey," she whispered, voice trembling. "Go sit with Miss Lena." The little girl climbed onto Lena's lap with innocent trust. "You look like a princess," she said. Lena laughed through tears. "Oh, sweetheart, you're the first person today to say that." The ceremony resumed, this time with Lena in the front row, beside the groom's family, where she belonged all along. And when Daniel and his bride exchanged vows, Lena cried harder than anyone else, not because of the wedding, but because, for the first time in a very long time, she felt seen, she felt valued, just she felt human. And the people who had once judged her, now wished they had known her sooner. When the ceremony ended, and the sun dipped behind the trees, Daniel hugged her one last time. "I love you, Lena. Thank you for being the reason today was even possible." She nodded, whispering back, "I love you too, son." His breath caught. "Say it again." "You heard me." She smiled. And Daniel, groom lawyer, husband, cried in her arms like the 17-year-old boy she once saved. Because some bonds aren't blood, some bonds are choice, and some bonds are miracles. The moral is simple: never judge a face you don't know. Some of the greatest angels on earth walk quietly, unseen until the moment their light becomes impossible to ignore.